Hi there, welcome to the latest news on the Dylan Rounds case. As of a day or two ago, it was the sentencing of James Brenner, the one responsible for murdering Dylan Rounds, May 28th, 2022. When looking back, quite a lot of time has passed by since, but there's been a form of justice in recent time, of course, in numerous different ways, from Dylan Rounds' body being found and returned back home for the closure there, and Brenner being charged. Well, the charges and the sentencing time isn't entirely great. What we're going to be doing today is looking at the details, the article which goes over it all. Now, there was a video about 25 minutes long by East Idaho News within the courtroom, but the audio isn't great. It's kind of hard to hear, but there is like a transcript of what's been said. So I'm going to read through that today, present it to you. I might react. I'll show my thoughts and opinions and what I think of the matter. And yeah, I guess without further ado, let's get into it. The title of this article reads, "Man Sentenced to Prison for Murder at Dylan Rounds," published at 4:44 p.m. July 1st, 2024, and it's been updated at 9:52. The video is there. It's titled "Victim's Dad Speaks at the Sentence," and I'm not sure if that's a face-to-face speaking or more so audio from like a recorded video. I did see a comment somewhere where they were saying that how Brenner was a coward, couldn't even face the family. But take in mind, on the sideline, Candice Cooley, at least to my knowledge, refused to speak to Brenner directly or indirectly because she thought it would give him satisfaction. And everyone has an opinion there. We can get into that a bit later. When I did see Brenner, the footage of him, I thought, whoa, has Christmas come early? Not for the right reasons. He looked like bloody Father Christmas with that hair and beard. So let that grow. But let's check the details here. James Brenner is sentenced for the murder of 19-year-old at the time Dylan Rounds. Brigham City, Utah. A 60-year-old man with a violent criminal history spanning 40 years was sentenced Monday for the murder of 19-year-old Dylan Rounds. And that's true. He has reoffended over and over again, from like the Maryland incident of shooting somebody because of a work dispute. Wasn't a fatal killing, but it was a wounding. It did hurt the person. And then it repeated itself many, many, many years later with Dylan Rounds, but in that case it was fatal and it was done multiple times in the skull. The district judge, Brandon Maynard, sentenced Brenner to a minimum of 3 years and a maximum of 30 years in prison. Okay. Brenner received a concurrent sentence of 1 to 15 years for second-degree murder, 2 consecutive sentences of 2 to 15 years for possession of a firearm by a restricted person. So in the eyes of Candice Cooley and others, and most, it's probably not enough. And, you know, the 15 years of the murder and then the consecutive sentences of 15 because of the firearm, it's kind of diminishing the actual impact of the murder, but they're making the firearm look more important or more serious or equally as serious in terms of the charges. And it shouldn't be like that, because in a way murder is more serious and should be dealt with more severely, right, in how you're punished. But take in mind, if anyone was wondering, the reason why Brenner's been charged with second-degree murder is because the original one was first-degree, I think, aggravated murder, in which that was the case. But because of that plea deal, the details consisted of, if Brenner was to go to the location with authorities to reveal where he buried Dylan's body at, then one of the 3 gun charges could be dropped completely, the desecration charge could be dropped, and in terms of the murder situation, it would go from first degree to second degree murder. And obviously, with diminishing those titles and charges, even though it's a part of a plea deal and it is what it is, you give and take, you get something out of giving something, it still diminishes the true impact of what Brenner has had on the case, on Dylan Rounds and the family. And then with comes reduced charges means kind of lower sentences. So it's a shame, but we'll just keep reading. Maynard stated he would recommend to the parole board that they keep Brenner for as long as they legally can. So that could imply that it might not be long enough and that Brenner could still be alive when he's released in the future. And granted, he could be much, much older, but still, nevertheless, if he was able to make it that long, live that long, he could kill another person, right? And that was one of the original reasons as to why Candice Cooley Justin Rounds didn't accept a plea deal back in 2023, because the deal was that bad that it would have been reduced from first-degree murder to an accidental killing or self-defense. Shooting someone multiple times in the skull. Yeah. A 19-year-old wanting to park a grain truck in a grain shed. So you can see why the plea deals were a bit dodgy back then and why it was delayed. It says James Brenner admitted to the murder of 19-year-old Dylan Rounds after leading law enforcement officers to the burial site as part of the plea agreement in May. As part of the agreement, Brenner pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a restricted person. All other charges were dismissed, as like what I mentioned earlier on. Rounds, it just gives a little bit of a rewind, we might as well. Dylan Rounds disappeared from his farm in the desert town of Lucin, Utah, over Memorial Day weekend in 2022. The 19-year-old spoke with his grandmother on the phone, known as Karen Rounds, and it was over the phone, not a text message, as the idiots in the community stated, the way they kept pushing that agenda. And that was before he vanished. The timestamp of when that call took place was around 6:51 a.m. in the morning at the North Gate, approaching the grain shed property, followed by minutes later at 6:58 attempting to call Brenner, but that didn't work out. It says, and he was never heard from again. His family spent the past 2 years searching for answers. Brenner's defense attorney, Gregory Fabrace, told the court that Brenner had asked him not to say much during the sentencing, but reminded the court of the plea agreement, which stated that Brenner would receive 3 to 30-year sentence, with requirement that Brenner show law enforcement Rounds burial site, which he did in early April. Yes, April 9th. In quotes, "It was something that my client had asked me about from almost the first day that I was brought into this case," said Fabrace. "One of the issues that was continually brought up was that my client did want to bring Dylan home." What? When Maynard asked Brenner if he wanted to make a statement, Brenner declined. At one point, prosecutors asked Maynard to require Brenner to turn around and face the gallery, packed full of Rounds' family and friends. They were behind him. That's why I couldn't see it in the actual shot of the video. I see. Do they normally have the backs facing the gallery? Well, yeah, I guess so. But to ask Brenner to turn around and look at them, be ordered to look around, a bit of a power dynamic change and shift there. Was there anything I needed to highlight though? By Fabrace that said, one of the issues that was continually brought up was that my client Brenner did want to bring Dylan home. That sounds so weird saying that. Yeah, oh yeah, I killed your son, but I want to bring him home so you get closure. I mean, are you doing someone a favour or what? You shouldn't have killed him in the first place. But to make sense of this, I guess it dates back to in 2023, where in that East Idaho News interview with Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds, Nate Eaton, before it was edited out. Let's not forget that. But don't worry, if you look on my channel, I've got it all documented before and after, before it was edited and after. It's all there if you want to take a look back. But in that interview in 2023, and I think it was March 3rd, upon hearing the news of Brenner being charged for the first time round with the desecration and the first-degree aggravated murder of Dylan Rounds, around that time. And Candice Cooley said in the interview about, Brenner, at this moment in time with his attorney, he's willing to talk. He wants to, possibly reveal the location of Dylan's body that early on. But as a family, they said, no, we can't accept it because the risk is too high. That's basically summarised. You can always look back at my previous videos, but the later reason as to why Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds turned it down was obviously because of the actual plea deal itself would have reduced it down to self-defence, not even murder, which would have been a complete slap in the face to Dylan and the family, of course. But in between that, before we heard that extra explanation, which totally made sense, it was more to do with, on a vague basis, that, if we take this plea deal, it could mean that Brenner doesn't serve as much time in prison and that he could be released at a later point. So we've made a deal with the devil. We've gone against our son's wishes. We feel like we've betrayed him after being killed by that killer, and now we're trying to get help from that killer. Seems wrong. And as well, if he is released in the future, he could harm another family. So, Rounds Cooley, selfless at the time, didn't want to see anyone else hurt or harmed by Brenner. That's understandable. But yeah, that Brenner wanted to bring Dylan home. It just sounds so weird that, you know, you're very passionate, you want to bring him home. Why do you want to bring him home? Is it because you don't like where you are now, so you want to get it over and done with? But obviously it was dragged out because of the plea deal not quite being met or agreed at the time. And still to this day, the final outcome of the plea deal, still not good enough, but much better than what it was previously. Hence the delay. When Maynard asked Brenner if he wanted to make a statement, Brenner declined. Yeah. Brenner's attorney asked Maynard if it was a request or an order. Maynard explained it was only a request, and Brenner declined to look at the gallery. Ooh, there we go. Why didn't Brenner want to look at the gallery? Interesting. I wonder if they said if it was a demand, an order, would Brenner have turned around then? I wonder. I mean, I guess he would have had to. But yeah, not looking at the family could show a bit like cowardly behaviour, not wanting to make eye contact with any of them. I'm sure that would have annoyed some of the family members in the gallery. It says Rhonda de Guer, the founder of Missing in America Network, spoke on Dylan's behalf, stating that he was a young man with a bright future before being killed by Brenner. The brightness of Dylan's dreams were brutally extinguished, said de Guer. De Guer also criticised law enforcement who were assigned to look for rounds, saying they traumatised the family even further. Law enforcement. I mean, yeah, because law enforcement early on did not use the Bloodhound unit, and their excuse was because of rain, so that would drop down to a 20% success chance in being able to locate Dylan, his remains, his scent, etc. But any chance is better than no chance, right? Then you had law enforcement not even treating it as a missing person case to begin with. They just simply said to the mother and father, you know what, he's probably just gone out partying, hanging out with people, give it a day or two, he'll probably come on back. But the law enforcement also never treated it as a crime scene, even though it should have been. Never cornered off the grain shed. But the law enforcement on June 2nd allowed the likes of James Brenner to do spring cleaning, move the grain truck, which Dylan operated on his final moments on the days before, the 28th. So tampering with evidence, and then Brenner bagging items up inside of the shed where the murder happened inside or nearby, could have been bagging up key evidence, tampering with more evidence and disposing of it later, and the law enforcement allowed it to happen, did absolutely nothing about it. So there was a lot of mess ups, and even the LE saying that they've got drones but they've not got the operators, so it can't be done. Then you had the LE where they didn't give the thumbs up for Texas Equisearch to step on in earlier, but there was long delays with that too. Then you had the law enforcement, even at the very beginning, the way they were handling with evidence, like chucking Dylan Round's boots on the back of a vehicle or so and not handling them with care. And that when it came to the boots and the lab reports, that they didn't send it away immediately, they delayed that as well. So the freshness of that DNA would have been lost partially. But the LE, they didn't use the forensics, they didn't use it properly in key areas such as near the pond or more so the grain shed. No forensics were found in the grain shed because too much time passed by, so that was wasted. No press releases, no press conferences like that, really dragged out there. I'm only mentioning just a very small summary, okay? There'll be much more trouble, right? And even the LE, where they could have arrested, because there was an arrest warrant on Brenner back in 2021, and the LE's excuse was due to COVID and the virus, we weren't able to apprehend Brenner early on. But if they did, it would have prevented Dylan Round's death going into 2022, right? I think it just would have delayed the inevitable. For as long as Dylan spent around Brenner or Lucen, there was always that chance of death when you look back retrospectively now. But nevertheless, law enforcement, if they stepped in sooner, could have prevented certain things from happening to an extent, right? What else do we have? Law enforcement not only failed to act with urgency, true, the situation demanded, but they also compounded the family's suffering by asking them to leave the property where Dylan was last seen, said de Guer. Right now, Dylan's remains are being stored in a box on a shelf. Right, you mean ashes being cremated like that? When you say his remains are on a box on a shelf, it sounds like you got like an arm, a head, and a body part here and there in the box. No, I think the best way of wording it would be cremation, ashes, like what quite a lot of people do. It's a bit worded very weird here, to be honest. But the bit about where they said that the family were asked by the law enforcement to leave the property, which was the grain shed where Dylan was last seen at, basically. It wasn't just the LE that ordered the family to walk away, the LE did themselves, and even the search and rescue, because early on, Brenner was getting agitated by the presence of so many people. The fact that the authority gave in to a general public person supposedly squatting on the land is absolutely pathetic, isn't it? And so what if Brenner got agitated? It might have been a good thing if he did get agitated, the longer people stuck around, because he probably may have snapped. He might have even fired some shots. That could have incriminated him sooner, couldn't it? And shown a more aggressive side to him earlier on. You think back, things could have been done different. Rounds' father, Justin Rounds, then spoke. Oh, there's this in court, detailing the consequences of Brenner's actions and pointing out that Brenner continues to show no remorse. In quotes, "I just want you to know what you took away. Not just from me or his mom or his brother and sister. You took away someone who was willing to be active in society and contribute to society. As far as I can tell, in your whole entire life, you've never contributed to society," said Rounds. "You don't have the balls to look anyone in the eye. Turn around and look at these other people you've affected." There you go. So it appears that Justin actually spoke himself in court, although he keeps to himself and he doesn't always have a lot to say. When the moment mattered, he did have something to say, so fair enough. Dylan's mother, Candice Cooley, wrote a letter to Maynard before sentencing and declined to read it aloud in court, saying that Brenner is an evil man. In quotes, "I think he's an evil man, and I think reading a victim impact statement would actually give him pleasure," Cooley told East Idaho News. We heard about that previously. "My statement will stay private and be turned into the parole board." Maynard then spoke before pronouncing the sentence, seemingly insinuating he wished he could sentence Brenner to a harsher punishment than that was agreed in the plea agreement. In quotes, "This is a proper ending for someone like Dylan," said Maynard. "I wish I could do something more. I understand when this plea was offered and was taken, it was with the consent of the family in an effort to bring closure, so there is nothing more I can do than what has been agreed upon." And there we go. That's it, the article. So not everyone was too pleased with Candice Cooley remaining silent when it came to that sentencing. And even before, when it was actually announced some time ago, where Candice Cooley told East Idaho News or whoever it was about there's no point speaking out, there's no point reading the impact and damage it's caused because it'll only give Brenner satisfaction within. And that could be, that's a fair point to mention, understandable, but not everybody thought that was a good idea, thinking, you shouldn't keep silent, you should speak out, you should say this, you should say that, but, you're not them. They can do what they want, their opinion at the end of the day. Most importantly, at the end of the day, the likes of Justin was able to speak himself because he wanted to, because he needed to, it felt it was necessary. So what's the big deal at the end of the day? At least one of the parents got to speak and did so. The other one didn't want to, but that's just because they didn't want to and they've got their reasons. So not the end of the world, really. And, when you look at Brenner's facial expressions, kind of a deadpan face, not really reactive, not really bothered too much from the looks of it. You could say a bit droopy eyes, looks a bit negative or a bit low on energy, but maybe that could be an act or that's just how he naturally looks, whatever. But yeah, just wanted to share this with you. Does this lead to like a case being closed? In a way, yeah. I mean, I'd say the case was coming to that close the moment when Dylan Rounds was found and retrieved, and that's where things came out. But, as for any other details, like those polygraph test questions with the likes of Don Hatley, James Brenner, was it Chase Venstra, will we ever hear about them? Maybe not. When it comes to those extra additional pieces of DNA-based evidence that was found or referenced to in 2023 coming towards the end of the year, Would we ever hear about that? Not from the looks of it. As for the video, the time-lapse one, which showed Brenner cleaning a gun, blood on him, will we ever get to see that footage? Probably not. Was it ever identified as to whose weapon it was in that footage? Was it Dylan's firearm used against him earlier? Or was it Brenner's own firearm, which was disposed of somewhere? I don't know. It was never revealed, right? What about the backhoe, which weird individuals out there were claiming was used and had blood on, and someone owns it but we can't reveal it? Will we ever know about that? Nope. Was that BS? Probably. So there are still unanswered areas, and they may never be revealed. And as you can say, justice has been, achieved to an extent, and Brenner's going to be punished now, and there's been closure to the family to an extent. As for the community, there are some unanswered questions, but I guess it is where it is. So, I think that's it for now. As I said, I'm covering the Noah Presgrove case, another potential true crime related case. Maybe a bit as corrupt or as dodgy as the Dylan Rounds one. In other areas, much deeper though, because there's more people and more perspectives. If any of you from the Dylan Rounds case are interested in true crime or dark, deep mysteries and possible corruption, head on over to the Noah Presgrove case coverage. You'll see top right corner of the screen where the I symbol is. There'll be a playlist, so you will be able to track and follow it. And if anyone has come on over from the Noah Presgrove case onto Dylan Rounds and hearing about it for the very first time, you click on the I symbol, there will be a Dylan Rounds playlist of over, I think, 496 or 97 videos on the case. I mean, it would have been good to reach the 500 mark, but you only reach that number when there's actually videos to make. And for example, today there was a reason to do so, but after this, I don't know if there will be a need to do any more videos. It depends what happens, and I don't think much will. The only other exception would be those supposed letters that have been written and contact made with Brenner within, between Crime Time with Jess, a YouTube channel, and James Brenner. Now, would Candice Cully feel that's going behind the backs? Probably. Would Justin Rounds mind? Probably not. Justin Rounds would probably approve of it, but it is what it is. Just a person reaching out to like a prisoner, inmate, to develop a report, to get answers out of why Brenner did what he did. It's interesting if Brenner was willing to talk and open up as to why, but I don't think it would be good enough for other people, such as the family and friends, because it's just like, from what he said. Oh yeah, from what he said, this is what he had to say. Is that good enough? You want to hear it straight from the person's mouth. It's like if a person was to fiddle with you and you want like a confession, you want them to truly apologize. You want to hear it directly from them because they're the ones that caused that pain, and you want that pain to be kind of taken away or reduced. And the only way you can do that is from hearing directly from the devil. And if it's just a message passed on, it's kind of like a half-hearted tone to it. But if it's the only way of getting an answer here, then I guess it is what it is. But I don't think everyone will approve of it that much. But you can argue and say Crime Time with Jess is doing what Brookie claimed to have done in the past, but Brookie never actually did it and just asked about and then hung around the likes of Salty Pancakes, which really shows the standards there and other people too. As we said, when looking back now, the Dylan Rounds community, when you look at it holistically, majority of it outside of here was cancer, dirt, okay? If I think about it, I need to have a wash, okay? And I don't want too many washes. I've had enough already. Cleansing would be needed once again. But, you look at the disruption, you look at the trouble, you look at the whining, you look at the false claims, you look at the attacks on warlike wrath. It's absolutely pathetic the way humans were. Low quality, low IQ. Some may be professionals, but they don't exactly perform that way in how they acted and conducted themselves online. It was a bit of a mess, wasn't it? But the remainder of people from the Dylan Rounds case and community that have watched my channel through and through and are still here till this day when covering other cases and expanding and growing elsewhere, whilst the other disease-ridden cretins are trapped in an eternal cycle, like a cryonic chamber of whining, the people that have managed to pull through and still remain, shout out to them. They did not change. They remained consistent. They remained frequent. They did not turn on me. That's all good, okay? As said, most people watching right now will probably understand what I'm getting at and the references made. We don't need to get too specific nowadays. All I will say is that some within the Dylan Rounds community branched on over to the Noah Presgrove case, and we know how that goes. Disease-ridden humans, not a good idea. But don't worry, Warlight Ref is here to cleanse the Noah Presgrove case on YouTube, okay? People can talk about little pit bulls and little dog chains. There's no dog chain here, okay? I'm not even a dog. I might be able to bark like one and sound like one and even communicate with dogs. But that aside, I'm more of a gorilla. I don't have any bananas at this moment in time, so I must be hungry. Hungry for what, though? Hungry for focus, hungry for consistency, hungry for depth, right? There might be some delusional or dysfunctional misfits that might claw along and pull at me or in the background or in chats when we're really focused, when we're being very serious. It's not going to work. People want to play little mind games, not going to work. Bad idea, okay? You want an appointment from Dr. F, you better make sure that your door is locked, okay? Because if it isn't, the rubber gloves are coming out and there will not be any, I don't know the medical terms, and I don't give a fuck by now. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this video somewhat interesting. Feel free to share it. Generally, just being honest, I don't think this video will perform because as I noticed, the Dylan Rounds case in performance-wise and popularity did drop significantly, but I remained all the way through from start to finish. I finished what I started and I remained consistent. I single-handedly kept this case alive, and all of the good individuals that did watch in the background and also watch directly, they're not down there, they're up here equal because they're all of the same importance in terms of contribution to the case. Okay, so all the good people that did watch my videos, answering questions, being patient, giving ideas, links, references, and even directly supporting the channel, that's obviously very important. So although, yes, I covered videos and I covered the case and I kept it alive single-handedly, as for everybody that watched, they obviously played a key role as well. And that's why when we move on into the Noah Presgrove case and focus in there, keep up the same momentum and style by asking questions and reaching out. Even if I'm supposed to be the expert, when you reach out to the audience, then it creates that that interactional side, and then it just goes to prove that the audience will know just as much, if not more, than the actual creator, such as me. So that's why I do what I do, and we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. I'm probably going to have 2 to 3 videos today. I've got some catching up to do. I've got some bullet points. I've got some projects. I need to get on with it. So I'll see you there. Goodbye for now.